What's up, Guru Nation? Just wrapped up a really good interview. We actually need to do more of these kind of interviews with patients, and because it kind of puts everything into perspective. Like, it's so easy for us researchers to get caught up in our own little world of paperwork and contracts and regulatory, and we forget that there's actually patients that benefit from our research and lives that we can actually save. I mean, I know it may sound idealistic, but it's reality. I just interviewed someone for Excella Bio, Hoffman Oncology's YouTube channel. That's an oncologist that I'm working with on their investigator-initiated studies. And it's a patient, not one of his patients, but it's a patient who actually reached out to him through a Facebook group. And anyway, she's extremely informed. She's an e-patient without even knowing what that means. And there's all these buzzwords being thrown around in the industry about patient centricity. I mean, this person like embodies all the ideals that we have in this industry about what an informed patient should be, and it should, at least for all of us, I know it did for me, put everything into perspective as to why we're doing what we do. So hopefully you enjoy, and I don't normally share this kind of content here, but I decided that this would be a good one, and maybe I'll do more of these ones later on as well. So enjoy, Guru Nation. Take care. Hey everybody, welcome back to Excella Bio and Hoffman Oncology. I am Dan Sfera, and today I'm interviewing Stephanie Angelakos. Stephanie is I first learned about Stephanie through Dr. Hoffman himself. He sent me an email, a long email. It was like an article written by Stephanie, very well written. I mean, I thought it was a doctor that was writing it. But Stephanie's a breast cancer survivor. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And we're gonna get into your story and your background and everything that happened, and then social media and how you became an informed patient and the whole empowered patient movement, which is extremely important in clinical
Very important.
research. And so let's get into it because there's a lot to talk about. So, Stephanie, who are you? What is your background?
Well, basically, I'm a woman living in Seattle. I'm 49 years old currently. I've got two teenage boys. I actually just became a grandmother recently,
Oh,
believe it or not.
congrats.
Thank you. That was a little unexpected blessing, but it's been a nice distraction from cancer.
Yep.
And basically, I for the past couple of years, my whole world has pretty much been consumed with breast cancer and breast cancer research since I was diagnosed. And that was back in December of 2016, when right before my 48th birthday.
So what happened
So,
on that day? See, Monica, this is gonna be a good interview. I'll send it to you later. I'm at one of the research clinics now, and we have study coordinator, hardworking study coordinator just leaving. We'll get into that later. But what happened
okay.
on that day, Stephanie? Like what? So you just went for a regular doctor visit, or did you have symptoms, or what
No, no,
happened?
no. It was nothing like that. In fact, I hardly ever went to the doctor in my entire life for any reason. I was really never sick, never going to the doctor. Actually, hadn't had a mammogram in years, and didn't necessarily think that I needed one. What happened was I was actually on vacation in Mexico, trying to relax, when I found a tiny little seed-like lump in my left breast, and excuse me, it did feel kind of like a lemon seed. It was really weird, or a little shard of glass or something, and not necessarily what you would expect to feel when you're told about breast cancer. Like, oh, you might feel a lump, or you might feel a cyst or a bump. It was nothing like that. It was just a tiny little thing that felt almost sharp. So I'm like, this is weird. And I had my boyfriend who was with me feel it. He's like, oh, Steph, it's probably nothing. It's so small. And I'm thinking small things lodged in your breasts can kill you as easily as large things. But I was in Mexico, so there wasn't a lot that I could do at the moment other than madly Googling on a very
Wow.
limited internet connection.
And
But
what
I had a feeling it was going to be bad.
was it painful or
No,
no?
no, it wasn't. It wasn't painful at all. And over the few days that we were there, I kept touching it over and over to see, is it still here? Did it disappear? Was it maybe a bug bite or something? Surely this can't be anything because it
So it
was
was
just
literally
so
one day it
random.
was there and the next day it was like one day it wasn't there and then the next day it was there.
Right. Or I just hadn't noticed it. It
Okay.
was extremely tiny, but once you felt it, you could feel it was something, and it was right underneath the skin. So I actually all I had was Google, as I mentioned. So I got on Google on my phone when I did have internet, and I found a campaign that was out there that was called Know Your Lemons, and it basically described if you feel something that feels similar to a lemon seed, that could be cancer. So I knew when I read that I was probably in trouble because it did feel exactly like that. Uh,
Wow. So exactly how
so
Google described it is what.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And my boyfriend was trying to downplay it, like, oh, I'm sure it's going to be nothing. And
Right.
it was like 2 days into our vacation, so I was trying to still actually enjoy our time in Mexico. So I kind of tried to put it out of my mind, but it never really left.
Hmm.
And as soon as I got back, I went to the doctor.
Jeez. And then what, he or she recommended a mammogram and what happened?
Um, well, basically, at that point, we ultimately discovered that the lump that I had found myself was DCIS, which in itself, if it would have been just that, would have been most likely relatively innocuous. The DCIS is considered stage 0. Um, you still want to get rid of it, but if it would have been just that, I would have been overjoyed. But what happened was, in finding that, they soon discovered a much larger lump that was in the upper quadrant of my left breast, the same side. It was about 2.6 centimeters and ended up being mixed ductal and lobular breast cancer, which was much more worrisome than just the DCIS. And I would have never found that, most likely, unless I went in for a mammogram, which wasn't on my radar at the time. And even
Right.
with a mammogram, lobular cancer is often missed because it spreads like a web rather than a lump.
Mm.
So you can't really identify it
You
as
know,
easily.
it's funny you bring up the mammogram thing. Well, not funny, but it's interesting because I was at a conference last week, and I was talking to a physician, and she was so upset that Medicare does not cover mammograms until you're 50. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
we really want to do a better job at early diagnosis, we need to get these done starting at 40. But the problem is, and then she got into this whole conspiracy thing. And this is a doctor, like
Right,
very well educated, like not some nut job. She said,
right, right.
there's just so much money to be made in oncology, and no one has the incentive to get it looked at earlier. I mean, now that you've studied this more, what do you think about that?
I'm not so sure about that specifically. I think that, from what I've seen, there are so many women in the group that I'll tell you about that I started that are under 50, that are under 40, that are under 30 with breast cancer. And I think that, waiting till you're over 50 is a pretty scary thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
especially when oftentimes the mammograms don't even catch the cancer. I've seen that happen over and over. Younger women tend to have denser breast tissue, and it's much harder for a mammogram to pick up. So there are many, many women whose cancers are missed on mammograms altogether. So the whole, subject of a mammogram is kind of controversial no matter when you start it, because they're just not all that effective from what
Mm.
I've seen.
What do you think is better, like as far as diagnosing?
Well, in an ideal world, a breast MRI would probably be, the best diagnostic tool that you could have, but it's much more expensive. Insurance companies don't want to cover it. You have to fight to
Radiation,
get
yeah.
one. Yeah, you have to fight to get one even when you have breast cancer and you're checking for recurrence. Unless you tell them you feel like your implant is rupturing from reconstruction or you have some pain, insurance won't cover it. So there's so many insurance hurdles with the whole situation. But I think that's the most effective thing out there.
Okay.
People just don't go around getting breast MRIs all the time.
Yeah, and they're expensive too. So, okay, so
Yeah.
you got the diagnosis. So what did the doctor advise you to do?
Well, I sought multiple opinions because that's the way I am. I'm very thorough, and I went to see several different doctors, breast surgeons, oncologists, plastic surgeons for reconstruction. I saw about 15 doctors before I actually had surgery. So each one of them had a different opinion. A lot of them liked to tell me that I had a good cancer because it was early stage. It was caught at stage 2, and it was estrogen and progesterone positive, which makes it easier to treat with endocrine therapy than triple negative cancers. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of breast cancer. So to them, it was the quote good cancer. To me, no cancer is good.
Right.
So I just wanted to find out as much as I can because I found that the oncologists really try to sugarcoat things a little bit because they want to give you hope. They don't want you to be too worried. And I'm a very direct person. I just like to get the science and the information and the knowledge and then make my own decisions from there. There's a
good
lot
for
the
you.
oncologists don't tell you.
I've noticed that, and I think this group, which we're gonna get into now, the group you created, serves that purpose for a whole lot of people who are newly diagnosed and they don't have any place to go. But before we get into that, did you have a history of cancer in your family?
There was no history of cancer whatsoever in my family. And
Okay.
and that's the case with most women that are diagnosed with breast cancer. Only a very small percentage have an actual history in their family. So that's kind of a misconception that's out there. Like, oh, it's not in my family, so I don't know how
Yeah.
this happened. Generally, it's not in your family. So no history of anything.
And researchers haven't been able to find out exactly what causes it, right?
No.
There's all
There are
these
just
theories, but I mean, it's nothing.
tons of theories and tons of ideas, but no, if they could figure that out, we'd all be a lot happier.
Yeah.
So we could figure out a solution to how to get rid of it, because it can pretty much come back anytime. Once you have it, you pretty much always have it. You can be treated, but the cancer can recur, as much as 20, 25 years later. So it's never there isn't really a cure per se. You're just kind of always living with the sword dangling over your head, hoping that it's not going to come back.
Yeah.
Treatment.
Time is on your side, though. I mean, if it's any uh, cause for optimism, with Dr. Hoffman, now that I'm learning more about oncology, he thinks we're really close to a cure for breast cancer. And, he says maybe 10 years away from it.
Well, that's really positive to hear, and I shared that sentiment with my group because he expressed that in the video that he shared with us, and it gave a lot of people a lot of hope. I have a lot of stage 4 women in there that really, really were happy to hear that there's good things on the horizon.
A lot of
So-
work being done behind the scenes, not just scientists. I mean, obviously the science is foundation to what this is, but there's clinical research organizations like myself, just the media aspect, raising awareness so that when someone does get diagnosed, they understand that clinical research is an option and an alternative, and just like you did, getting second, third, fourth opinions, and
Yeah.
not just taking what your first doctor tells you as what you've got to do. I mean, you can become an empowered patient. And
Yeah.
now that we have the internet, yeah, that could be a good or bad thing, but I think it's mostly good because there's just tons of information out there.
It's really good if you're somebody that wants to be informed, and the name of my group is Knowledge is Power, because it is power, and in order for you and for women to be their own best advocates, they really need the knowledge to do that. So
knowledge is power. So okay, so you got a couple of opinions from different doctors, and then did they all pretty much give you the same advice?
pretty much, what I did was I took a test that's called the Oncotype DX test. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
Yeah.
There's that one, and there's also the MammaPrint that is, a similar test, but wasn't really available to me at the time. And so I took the Oncotype DX, and what that does is it's a genomic test that looks at your tumor specifically and gives you a score, basically, as to whether or not you should get chemotherapy. So, I was on pins and needles the whole time waiting for this score, wondering, am I going to need to get chemo, or am I not going to need to get chemo? And as it turns out, I got a low-ish score. It wasn't completely low, but it was low enough so that the two oncologists that I spoke to said chemo, would do more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
But, to be honest, I just really don't know how much we can trust these scores. I really don't, especially the more I've learned as time has gone on. So it'll be interesting to see in 10 years, how these scores correlate with what happens to women and their survival, depending on whether or not they got chemo. It's all kind of interesting.
So what did you opt for?
I opted not to do it. That's what was recommended to me, and so I chose to trust my doctor's expertise. But to this day, I still wonder, should I have done that? Did I put myself at more risk for recurrence later by not doing it? And another thing that I really would have liked to have is to have had the MammaPrint test done as well, which is the similar one that I mentioned, but it tests 3 times more genes than the Oncotype does. And it comes back with a little bit different type of score. It doesn't give you a number. It gives you you're either high risk or low risk for recurrence. And what I've learned recently from that is that there's like a 50% discordance between Oncotype and MammaPrint. So for instance, you could get a low Oncotype DX score and everybody's saying, oh no, you don't need chemo. But then if you take the MammaPrint, which is testing 3 times more genes, it comes back as high risk, even though you had a low score. So then it's like, oh, now what do I do? So it's interesting. Women are in a conundrum a lot of the time. Even though it's water under the bridge now, I'm still curious what my MammaPrint score would have been as well. Because it's weird to be a cancer patient and not get chemo. You're like, what?
Right.
I didn't know that was even an option. But that's the way it goes with these tests these days.
And so what was your treatment?
So basically, my treatment was I had a bilateral mastectomy. And because of that, I didn't need radiation either. So I didn't need chemo or radiation. I just opted to do the bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. And I'm taking anti-hormone therapy and medicine to shut down my ovaries because estrogen is what feeds the cancer. So that's what I'm doing.
Estrogen feeds the cancer.
It feeds the breast cancer, yes. So you don't want estrogen in your body when you have an estrogen-positive cancer. So many of the women take what Lupron or Zoladex shot or get rid of their ovaries altogether just to kind of shut the estrogen factory down, which comes with a lot of other side effects, too, but it's good for the cancer.
And you learned all this stuff just on your own, researching, right?
Yes. I feel like I have like a mini medical degree in breast cancer now.
Yeah, you should get like an honorary degree from some school. I mean, maybe Dr. Hoffman will do that.
Yeah, I need some sort of certificate or something because, I've learned much more on my own than I have from my doctors.
Sure.
I've learned more on my own from doing my own research and from the women in my group, many of whom are doctors, and scientists and breast cancer researchers with breast cancer themselves. Than I have from my own doctors because there's just more time to be spent with these other people learning.
Mm-hmm. So how quickly did you do the mastectomy after your diagnosis?
I waited about 7 weeks, which, a lot of people go and do it right away. But me, I wanted to be really thorough, and I met with so many different doctors before I was comfortable moving forward, because each one of them had a different opinion and a different idea of what to do. And it was a huge surgery. Going through reconstruction is a really long process. It's not, in my case anyway, it was not one surgery, but 4 surgeries last year. So you really got to be comfortable with your team. So I took my time really picking good surgeons that I trusted.
When you got all these second and third opinions and all that, I mean, knock on wood, thank God I've never had cancer, but I don't really go to the doctor that often, just like you, prior to your diagnosis.
Right.
So I just know it's like such a hassle when you want to switch doctors, like just something as simple. Yeah, like how did that go with you? Like, was that stressful or how?
Well, it was extremely stressful, but what happened to me was as soon as I was diagnosed, I didn't cry. I didn't, wallow in self-pity. I was like, okay, there's a lot of shit that needs to get figured out right now, and I'm the only one that's going to do it. So I need to get out there and meet these people, because that's the only way that I'm going to figure any of this out.
Because
so,
the default with your insurance provider is this is your doctor, and then he or she gives you a diagnosis, and then this is what you do. And you want it different. You want, no, I want to go see another doctor and then another one after that and get these other things done.
I cherry picked my doctors from several different hospitals. I didn't go with just one team at one hospital. Luckily, I had good insurance that covered all of that. But I also found in this process that a lot of women just go to the first doctor that someone recommends to them. And whatever that doctor says, they're like, okay. A lot of women out there think doctors are God and not to be questioned at all. And, that's another thing that I try to do with my group, and empowering them to be like, hey, you need to question these people. They're working for you. You need to be informed so you can ask good questions. And you don't just go with the first person that you meet. This is a very complex surgery that you're dealing with that will have lasting, lifelong, repercussions. So you need to be on your game, and you need to step up, and you need to meet with several people if you don't want to have a bad result, which can happen very often during reconstruction.
Yep.
It's very common.
So let's get into this Knowledge is Power group, because that's a integral part of your story. You got the mastectomy 7 weeks after your diagnosis. During that 7 weeks, I imagine you were researching and already maybe joining some support groups online and offline.
I was looking. I was trying to find my people. I had Google, and that was great. But, the other thing you do is you turn to the Facebook groups and see what's out there, what kind of information can I find. And unfortunately, I was really disappointed in what I found in the majority of the Facebook groups. A lot of the women were very uneducated about what they were up against. They had never, for instance, looked at their pathology report. Many of them had no idea what kind of breast cancer they had.
Wow.
And each one with a different treatment, so that's important to know. They didn't know what stage they were. They didn't know, what therapy they were going to do. A lot of people were doing crazy things like going to Mexico and doing coffee enemas and injecting their own scorpion venom, like just crazy, crazy stuff was happening online. And so in looking through all these groups, I was like, you know what? I need to start a group and curate a group of people that is more intelligent, that is hopefully going to attract some medical professionals in the best case scenario, women with breast cancer that are in the medical field. So what I did was, within all those groups, there was always some smart people. They weren't all clueless. There were some that knew their stuff. So I would kind of cherry pick around from different groups and say, hey, I'm starting this group. I'd love to invite you to it. And it just kind of grew from there. I got about 40 women initially that I picked from other groups and invited, and then they invited more people. And then it grew and grew and grew and just became a very fantastic, really popular group.
Well, what was the purpose of this group? I obviously it was for you and people like you to share resources and figure out how to deal with your situation. But what was like the overarching principle or the purpose of the group?
The overarching principle was to provide support, to one another, to have a group there who was going through the same thing, but more than that even was to crowdsource knowledge and fact-based information in order to enable women to be their own best healthcare advocates in this battle, that we're all up against, because there's so much that you need to know. And by having a bunch of medical professionals and scientists and researchers to ask questions to, you're able to gain a lot of knowledge that you can then go back to your doctors with and thoroughly question what they're telling you, because they just give you kind of a skeleton view of what you really need to know if you want to be an informed patient. So that's what this group, that's the main purpose of this group, is just gather fact-based information and knowledge and be on the cutting edge of, any new research that's coming out, any new theories, we're on it, before a lot of the doctors even hear about it. I send things to my oncologist that he hasn't seen yet, and talk to him about studies that he's not aware of. And because there's just not enough time in the day for some of them.
They're super busy.
They're super busy. They're seeing, 50 patients a day for 10 minutes each or whatever. A lot of them, not all of them, of course. So they don't have time to do all the research, and they tend to put everyone in this standard of care box. And that doesn't apply to us younger patients. And when I say younger, I mean under 50, because the average age someone is diagnosed with breast cancer is 62. So anyone under 50 is considered young. And we don't necessarily fit into the standard of care. We want more personalized medicine and personalized care for our particular situation. So trying to gather knowledge and empower women to not be afraid to question their doctors, because it amazes me how timid so many women are. And it's like, it's your life and it's on the line. So you got to know your shit, basically.
And how many members do you have now in Knowledge is Power?
There are about 1,600 members.
Wow.
I recently made it a secret group, which it's not supposed to be top secret. It just means that you can only come by invite only at this point, because I turned away another 1,600 just because they didn't kind of fit the profile of what I was trying to curate in the group. And a lot of women were like, no, we should let everybody in. And I'm like, no, this is not what we're doing. There's lots of other groups out there that they can join. But if this group is trying to attract a particular type of person to help, achieve the goals that I'm trying to do with the group. So it's growing a little bit more slowly now that it's become secret and invite only.
By invite only.
Yeah.
And that was to encourage more discourse on scientific topics.
Just to keep it that way, yeah, and to keep it, drama free. To keep it, the women that are there now get what the group is all about. They know what the objectives are, and they will understand who will be a good fit and who won't. So
yeah, I feel I understand what you're doing, and I think obviously it's your group, you should do that, but I think there could be opportunity for maybe a Cliff Notes version of the best curated stuff from your group.
Yeah.
Open to the public, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, I've actually thought about making it into a nonprofit as well. I have lots of different ideas.
Now you're talking. Yeah.
This is just what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay.
It's only been a year. I've got lots of other ideas going on in my mind, especially because I put so much time into the group.
Yeah, you guys are like a think tank now. I mean.
Yeah, we really are.
1,600 minds that are handpicked, basically. Many doctors, many cancer researchers in there. So I feel like you guys actually have some value to provide to the society at large.
We do, and we're kind of keeping doctors on their toes out there now, because we get research in our group, and people go back to their oncologists or surgeons with it, and they are put in a position where they have to rethink what they've told the patient based on new information that's getting provided to them from this group. So it's kind of like a movement that's going on, and in addition to that, there's a lot of camaraderie in the group. So it's also really fun, and it's kind of a safe place to land for the women that are going through this, because you can't just talk about cancer 24/7 without having some laughs or talking about things that are going on in your life. So it's more than just studies and facts. It's also kind of like a sisterhood of women that are going through this together.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So are you guys considered e-patients? Like, there's this whole movement called the e-patient movement. I don't know if you're aware
I don't
or
know.
familiar with that.
What is that?
It's called empowered patients. So the E stands for empowered. It started like in 2009. There's this celebrity named e-patient Dave. I interviewed him back in 2010, actually, when I started this blog. He was diagnosed with, I think, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and then he, just like you, went online, started researching all these peer-reviewed articles, and then came up with his own alternative through his doctors. And he had very progressive doctors that were willing to pretty much do what he said. And he goes on tour now. He's a celebrity. You should look him up.
I'm gonna have to look him up
Dave.
for sure.
Yeah, he's
Dave.
really big on Twitter, and he's an author now. Yeah, he's a cool guy. So
He
you
sounds
guys,
like my male counterpart.
yeah, you guys are e-patients. You don't even know that you're an
Yeah.
e-patient.
I didn't know. I'm gonna have to check him out.
There's a whole movement around that. But clinical
Yeah.
research, getting into clinical research, I mean, and that's how I know Dr. Hoffman, is because I'm in the research industry, and he is as well. One of the things we're studying are immunotherapy, and then now he's very excited about exosomes as well. I don't know if you guys are researched up on exosomes. I mean, it's pretty promising from what I hear.
Yes, I don't know a lot about it personally, but I know some of the scientists and researchers in the group have mentioned it before, and I just kind of perks my attention, but I don't fully understand what's up with that. But sounds good.
Yeah, and then in regards to the clinical research, this whole e-patient movement, that's why I'm bringing it up, empowered, informed patients. Clinical research is an alternative, and a lot of drug companies, like Eli Lilly is one of them, they actually get patient feedback on how to design trials. So this might be something for you guys to look into in your group. Things that you've discovered or researched and you'd like to see incorporated in an actual study. There are drug companies out there that are willing to listen to you guys, and actually, like, they'll design a trial around your ideas and your hypotheses. So they're starting to do a lot of this now. So that's encouraging too, because they used to never include the patient. They would just, some people in ivory tower would decide what the clinical trial would be, and that's it.
It's so important. You need to include the patients in everything that you're doing. I think it's critical. You need their voices. They're the ones that are going through everything, and they have a lot of knowledge in many cases. So I think it's beneficial to everyone to include the patients in these things.
I think we'll see more of that. Now, where do you guys get your where do you guys do your research? Is it clinicaltrials.gov? Is it the study results? Where do you guys get your stuff?
It comes from all over the place. It depends on who's providing the research. The scientists and researchers have access to a lot of things that the rest of us lay people don't. So they often post things that are behind paywalls for us, but they have access to them. So they post research that they're privy to that we're not, and the rest of us are just on PubMed and Googling and keeping up with anything we see in the news, that sort of thing. But we kind of rely a lot on the doctors and researchers to bring things to our attention that we can't access, on our own.
Clinicaltrials.gov might be helpful too. They're supposed to publish their study results anytime a study's over. So, and you'll get the PDF file on clinicaltrials.gov. Yeah.
I'll check that out for sure. That sounds good.
That's one of the things ePatient Dave was big on, was clinicaltrials.gov study results.
ePatient Dave. Things for me to look up later.
Yeah, he's
Writing
awesome.
them down.
He's on Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter, but he's like big on there.
I got on Twitter recently, but I'm a Twitter neophyte. I just need to learn how to deal with it, kind of the same as doing this interview.
Yeah, well, you're doing great.
I've never done Skype. What?
You're doing great. And by the way, if anyone else from the Knowledge is Power group wants to come on and share their story, I'd love to have them. Me and Dr. Hoffman, and through our research arm, Excella Bio, we're trying to get the word out and trying to empower more patients out there about
I'm
the treatment
sure there'd be a
alternatives.
lot of women that would love to do it. There's a lot of really well-spoken, uh, educated women in the group that would probably really like that.
That'd be
They really
awesome.
appreciated the video that Dr. Hoffman put together for them. I don't know if you saw the comments that were there, but it got,
Nah,
quite a lot of interaction going, and
that's
they were very
awesome.
appreciative. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have access to the group, but I just saw your emails.
Yeah. I think I printed out some of them
Oh,
to
okay, okay. Yeah, I'll
which,
let them know, and I'll definitely try to get him on again. And anytime you guys or anyone in the group has questions for him,
yeah.
I'll be happy to be the messenger and do
Well,
another
he's a
one of these.
sweetheart. I mean, how I connected with him initially was I took, the Foundation One genomic testing, and I was trying to find out if I had any mutations that would respond to, specific therapies. And I asked to speak to a doctor once I got my results because my own oncologist was like, I don't know what to do with this information. Great, I'm
Mm.
glad you did it, but what are we going to do about it? And so I'm like, okay, I'd like to speak to someone from their team. And they put me in touch with Dr. Hoffman. And he was so sweet. He called me on a Sunday, which, it's not even a work day. And he spent an hour with me on the phone, going over my results and what they meant. And he was very encouraging. And it was just, somebody that really went out of their way for me. So I really, really appreciated that. You don't
That's
come across a lot of people
incredible.
like that. Yeah.
No, you don't see that
I,
every day. And now that I work with him, I see the same thing, like similar things that he does. I mean, he truly is passionate about this stuff. It's not just because it's his career. Like, this is like his
yeah,
life mission.
you could tell in talking to him. And so I was just very appreciative. So be sure he sees that and finds out that I
He'll see
really appreciate.
this. I'll
Yeah.
send him this video. Um, yeah, this is for his YouTube channel, so he'll be appreciative of this interview. But I guess we can have you on again, and just do some
Sure.
follow-up interviews and
Yeah.
get some other members from the group. And again, if you guys ever have anything you want me to bounce off of Dr. Hoffman for you, I'll be happy
Sure.
to do that. The more the better, because we
Yeah.
always need more content for these videos. Um,
We've got lots of women. If you think of, some topics in particular that would be good for you or helpful for you, unless you just want to hear their stories, kind of like,
Anything, that's the best. Yeah, and their stories, of course, but anything that they are interested in or they have
mhm.
questions about, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to counterpunch. We don't just want to put out stuff that we want to talk about. We wanted this to have
Yeah.
practical value for people out there.
Well, maybe we could do something at some point where there's a question and answer session that we could do within my group.
Wow, yeah, that would be good.
You probably know how to do that more than I do with your technological savvy skills.
I'm not that good with Facebook groups. I've never gotten into it. I don't know why. But
I bet you could figure it out pretty
yeah,
fast,
there's a
though.
way to do it. There's got to be a
Yeah,
way to do it. But
Facebook Live or whatever. There's something, but where everybody could kind of interact.
Facebook Live would be incredible. Yeah.
If there's a way to do that, that would be really cool.
There's got to be a way. We'll do it through Dr. Hoffman's Facebook page and figure out a way
Yeah,
to incorporate that into your group somehow.
yeah. Or we could do it in my group as well. You guys could be guests, in the
Okay.
group for
Yeah,
the day or whatever. I'm sure the women would be fine with that.
that'd be awesome,
Couple
and
of guest
probably the
speakers.
first time it's done ever.
Yeah, yeah. It'd be very cool.
Cool, Stephanie. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your
Yeah.
time.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah, there's just so much more we could talk about, but
Well, we
maybe
can do
we'll.
another one another time. There's
Yeah,
plenty.
we'll cut them up into maybe we'll do like a series of interviews with you because we just barely scratched the surface, and I wanted to
Yeah,
get into more stuff, but there'll be
that,
future interviews for that.
that sounds good. I'm around. I'm
Thank you very
available.
much, Stephanie. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank
We'll
you.
be in touch, and thank you everyone for watching, and catch you all later. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot.